The evening air was thick with the scent of rain and fried food as James Parker parked his dusty pickup truck in front of a small, nearly forgotten diner on the edge of town. The neon sign buzzed above, casting a flickering blue hue onto the wet asphalt below. Mel's Diner, a place that hadn't changed in 20 years. And maybe that's why he chose it. In a world that constantly shifted beneath his feet, he needed somewhere that stayed the same. James glanced to his right, where 6-year-old Lily sat, her small face pressed against the window, eyes wide with wonder at the glowing signs. "Are we really eating here, Daddy?" she asked, her voice bubbling with excitement. James smiled, tired but sincere. "Yeah, baby. A special dinner. Just the two of us." Lily clapped her hands, her golden curls bouncing as she wriggled in her seat. "You said it's a fancy dinner, right?" He chuckled, stepping out into the damp evening. "As fancy as grilled cheese and chocolate milk gets." Inside, the diner smelled like old coffee, warm bread, and stories whispered over late-night meals. They slid into a corner booth beneath a flickering light. James exhaled deeply, running a hand through his unkempt hair. His body ached from another 14-hour day. 8 hours at the warehouse, then 6 more doing food deliveries. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. The waitress, a woman in her late 50s with tired eyes and a kind smile, approached. "Evenin', James." "And hello there, Lily Bean," she said fondly, ruffling the little girl's hair. "Hi, Miss June," Lily beamed. "The usual," June asked. James nodded. "Grilled cheese and chocolate milk for the lady. Just coffee for me." June gave him a knowing look but didn't press. She walked off with their order. James leaned back, his eyes scanning the diner. He'd been here countless times since Emily left, always alone, always aching. It had been nearly a year since she disappeared. One moment they were a family, tight on money, yes, but happy in their own little world. The next she was gone. No goodbye, no note. Just vanished. At first he thought she'd been hurt. He'd called hospitals, the police, even filed a missing persons report. But nothing turned up. Weeks turned into months. People stopped asking. Whispers began. She just left. She couldn't handle the pressure. Maybe she found someone else. But James never stopped hoping, until hope started to feel like a cruel joke. He had a daughter to raise. So he locked his heartbreak in a box, shoved it in the darkest corner of his mind, and kept going. "Daddy!" Lily's voice pulled him back. "Yes, sweetheart." She pointed to the window where the rain had started again. "Do you think Mommy's watching us from heaven?" James's heart twisted. He reached across the table and took her tiny hand. I think Mommy would be proud of you, wherever she is." Lily nodded solemnly, then smiled when her grilled cheese arrived. "Best dinner ever," she declared with her mouth full. James sipped his coffee, warmth spreading through him, not from the drink, but from the sight of his daughter's joy. Then everything changed. Lily froze mid-bite. Her eyes widened, fixating on something over James's shoulder. "What is it?" he asked, turning to follow her gaze. At the far end of the diner, seated in a private corner, was a woman unlike anyone else in the room. She wore a fitted ivory coat, her long dark hair cascading down in perfect waves. Her fingers shimmered with jewelry that caught the dim light like diamonds. She sat poised, across from an older man in a tailored navy suit with an air of wealth and control. James looked back at Lily, but she was no longer in her seat. "Mommy!" she cried, dashing across the diner. James's heart slammed against his ribs. Well, it couldn't be. But it was. Lily ran straight into the woman's lap, arms wrapped tightly around her waist. The woman gasped, visibly startled, her hands hovering in the air for a brief second. Then slowly they came down, trembling to hold Lily close. She looked down, and for a moment, her composed exterior cracked. Her lips parted in disbelief, and her eyes filled with tears. "Lily," she whispered. James shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly across the tile floor. He moved toward them on unsteady legs, his pulse roaring in his ears. The closer he got, the clearer her face became. It was her. Emily. His Emily. He stopped just a foot away, unable to believe it. The woman who had haunted his dreams, whose memory both comforted and destroyed him, was sitting right there. Emily, he breathed. She looked up at him. Her eyes, those same hazel eyes he fell in love with, shimmered with tears. James, she whispered. The man beside her stood abruptly. His presence was sharp and commanding. You know each other? He asked, glancing between them. Emily's gaze dropped, her voice barely audible. Dad, this is James. And this is Lily. James turned to the man, Emily's father. The one she had said was estranged, controlling, cruel. The billionaire's expression hardened. James stared at Emily, emotions swirling. Rage, confusion, heartbreak. You left us, he said, his voice trembling. You disappeared. No word. No goodbye. Lily thought you were dead. Emily's face crumpled. She reached out instinctively. I didn't want to leave. I swear it. I was forced to. James recoiled. Forced? By who? She looked at her father. The older man cleared his throat. Perhaps we should sit down. James didn't move. Please, Emily said softly, clutching Lily to her side. Just hear me out. James looked down at Lily. She had both arms wrapped tightly around Emily, resting her cheek on her mother's chest. He hadn't seen her this calm in months. With great reluctance, James nodded and followed them back to the table. Emily's voice trembled as she spoke. A year ago, I came home to find my father waiting for me. He said he knew everything about our life, our finances, your struggles. He didn't approve of you. He never did. James clenched his jaw. Emily continued. He gave me a choice. Leave you and Lily, or he would make sure you lost everything. Your job, your home. Even custody of Lily. He had lawyers. Power. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. You could have told me, James said coldly. We could have fought him together. Her eyes filled again. He made sure I couldn't. He took my phone, froze my accounts. I was sent away. I tried to get back, I swear, but I was trapped. James turned to the older man. Is this true? The billionaire's expression was grim. Yes, I believed I was protecting her. I thought you'd ruin her future. I didn't care about your love. I cared about legacy. His voice dropped. But I was wrong. See it now. I destroyed 3 lives instead of saving one. The table fell into silence. James couldn't speak. His chest felt tight, like he'd been holding his breath for a year and only now realized it. Lily broke the silence. Does this mean Mommy can come home? She asked, looking up at James with hopeful eyes. Emily looked at him too, vulnerable and pleading. Only if you'll let me. James felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. The woman he had hated, longed for, and mourned was here. The pain hadn't vanished, but for the first time it had context. And that changed everything. I don't care about money, he said finally. I never did. All Lily and I ever wanted was you. Emily let out a sob as James reached across the table and took her hand. Her father cleared his throat. I can't undo the past. But I'd like to help now. If you'll let me. He slid a checkbook across the table. James barely glanced at it. We don't need your money. But if you really want to help, be a grandfather. Be present. Start over. The older man nodded, humbled. Emily leaned across the table and pulled James and Lily into a tearful embrace. And for the first time in a long, long time, James felt whole again. The rain had stopped by the time they left the diner. James held Lily's hand tightly as she skipped between her parents, blissfully unaware of the emotional weight that hung between them. Emily walked beside them silently, her eyes darting to Lily every few seconds, like she was afraid to blink and lose her all over again. James opened the truck door, lifting Lily inside and buckling her seatbelt. Emily hovered nearby, hesitant. Can I ride with you? James met her eyes. There was vulnerability in her voice, so unlike the strong-willed Emily he remembered. But there was also something familiar, something real. He gave a slight nod. Yeah, hop in. The ride was quiet at first. Lily fell asleep within minutes, curled under James's worn jacket. The soft hum of the truck engine was the only sound until Emily finally spoke. "I've been staying at my father's estate," she said quietly. "But it's not home." It never was. James didn't answer right away. His hand stayed firm on the steering wheel. The road was dark and winding, much like the path they were now on. "I thought about you every single day," she continued. "I wrote letters I could never send. I replayed the last moment I saw you over and over again, trying to find a way I could have fought harder." He glanced at her. "Why now? Why tonight?" Emily looked down at her hands. "My father finally admitted the truth. That he destroyed everything. I told him if he didn't make it right, I'd walk away from him forever. He caved." James didn't speak. His silence was heavy, but it wasn't angry anymore. It was processing. Back at the small apartment, James carried Lily to bed. Emily stood in the doorway, watching as he tucked her in with the gentleness of a man who had learned to carry the weight of the world alone. "She's grown so much," Emily whispered. "She had to," James replied, not unkindly. "She didn't have a choice." Emily nodded, eyes brimming again. "Neither did you." James turned to face her. "No, but I did what I had to. For her." Emily stepped closer, her voice barely audible. "Can I stay? Just tonight? On the couch?" He hesitated. "You can have the bed," she offered quickly. "I just want to be near her. Please." He gave a short nod. That night, James lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The faint sounds of Lily's breathing reached him from the bedroom. Emily lay in the next room, and the scent of her perfume, soft and floral, lingered in the air. He remembered the nights they used to lie in bed, talking about baby names, about their dreams of opening a bookstore cafe together, about growing old side by side. Those dreams had been shattered. But maybe not forever. A week later, Emily had moved into a small guest house down the street, close enough to visit, far enough to give James space. He picked Lily up from school. They cooked dinner together once a week. They played board games in the evenings. It was awkward at times, emotional, but also healing. One night, after Lily had gone to sleep, James and Emily sat on the porch steps sipping tea. "I still love you," she said, her voice trembling. "But I know it's not enough. Not after everything." James looked up at the stars. "It's not about love. It's about trust. And that takes time." "I'll wait," she whispered. "As long as it takes." And James believed her. Because for the first time since she vanished, Emily wasn't running. She was fighting for him, for Lily, for the family they almost lost. A month had passed since that fateful night at the diner. James and Emily had established a fragile rhythm, like learning to dance to an old song they'd nearly forgotten. Emily took Lily to school most mornings, packed her lunches with heart-shaped notes, and attended every weekend soccer game, even though she didn't understand the rules. Lily, in return, clung to her mother like a long-lost treasure, overflowing with stories, hugs, and drawings with "Mommy" written in pink crayon. But James was cautious. Every glance between them held the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. Every silence stretched a little too long. And though his heart pulled toward her, his mind reminded him of the pain she left behind. One Tuesday morning, everything shifted again. Emily stood on James's porch holding a thick manila envelope. Her hands trembled slightly. James opened the door, surprised to see her so early. "Hey, what's going on?" "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice serious. He stepped aside, letting her in. Lily was still getting dressed for school. Emily sat at the kitchen table, the envelope in front of her like a ticking time bomb. "I went to the doctor," she began. James's heart stopped. "I've been having some headaches, dizziness. I thought it was stress, but..." She opened the envelope and slid the papers toward him. It's a tumor. Early stage benign for now. But I need surgery. James stared at the medical papers, the lines blurring before his eyes. I didn't want to tell Lily yet, she said. I don't want to scare her. But you deserve to know. In case something goes wrong. He sat down, emotions flooding him. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to complicate things. You're still rebuilding trust. I didn't want you to think I was using this to pull you back. James leaned forward, taking her hand. Emily, this isn't about guilt or history. This is your life. Our daughter's mother. You don't face this alone. Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks. I was so afraid. Afraid you'd shut me out again. He squeezed her hand. I was afraid too. That if I let myself love you again, I'd get hurt. But watching you with Lily. Seeing how hard you've tried. He paused, his voice cracking. I can't lose you again. Not like this. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. Then let's fight together. The surgery was scheduled a week later. James took time off work. He helped Emily with paperwork, took care of Lily, and even slept in the waiting room chair the night before the procedure. As she was wheeled away into the operating room, Emily looked at him one last time. Promise me, she whispered. You'll take care of Lily. Even if I don't make it. James's voice broke. Don't talk like that. You're coming back. You have to. The hours crawled by. James sat holding Lily, who was coloring pictures of flowers and writing, "Get well, Mommy," across them. Every minute felt like a lifetime. Finally, the surgeon emerged. She's stable. We got it all. She's going to be okay. James felt like he could breathe again. Emily was recovering well at home, James's home. One night, he found her sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars. He joined her silently. I've been thinking a lot, she said, about what matters. And I realized this us is worth fighting for. James looked at her, heart swelling. I've been thinking the same thing. She turned to him. Can you ever forgive me? He nodded slowly. I already have. She reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. Their fingers laced together naturally, like they were never meant to be apart. And for the first time in over a year, James leaned forward and kissed the woman he had never stopped loving. Spring melted into summer, and with it came healing. Emily's strength returned slowly. Her smile, once hesitant and guarded, bloomed again, warmer and more genuine with each passing day. James noticed it in the little things. The way she hummed while brushing Lily's hair, how she laughed at his sarcastic comments, the sparkle in her eyes when they caught his across the kitchen. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was becoming something real. One Saturday morning, Lily burst into the living room holding a wrinkled piece of paper covered in pink glitter. Look what I made, she squealed. James took the paper and read the shaky letters aloud. I want Mommy and Daddy to get married again, complete with stick figures, flowers, and a giant heart around the three of them. Emily froze, her eyes widening. James looked over the paper, then at Lily, who was grinning up at him, her two front teeth missing. And who gave you this idea? He asked gently. My heart, Lily said proudly. Emily laughed, tears welling in her eyes. Well, your heart is very smart. James knelt beside their daughter. You know what, Lily? Daddy's heart thinks so too. Emily's breath caught. He turned to her slowly, pulling a small, weathered ring from his pocket. I've kept this, all this time. Not because I couldn't let go, but because deep down I didn't want to. He stood, walking toward her, and knelt down on one knee. Emily Parker, will you give us one more chance? Not just for Lily, but for us. For all the dreams we once had and all the ones we haven't made yet. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They kept it simple, intimate. In a park near the diner where they had reunited. Emily wore a soft ivory dress that fluttered in the breeze. James stood tall beside her, eyes only for her. And Lily, beaming in a flower girl dress, tossed rose petals down the aisle with more energy than grace. James's voice cracked as he spoke his vows. I once lost you, Emily. And for a long time I thought that was the end. But love, real love, it doesn't vanish. Wait, forgives. It fights. Emily took his hand. You were my home, James. Even when I was far away, even when I was lost. I never stopped loving you. And now I'll never leave again. They sealed it with a kiss that held a year of heartbreak, healing, and the promise of forever. Lily cheered the loudest. James and Emily opened a cozy bookstore cafe just like they dreamed in their younger years. The Little Lighthouse, they called it, a nod to the guiding light that brought them back to each other. Emily ran the shop. James handled the coffee. And Lily, she had her own reading corner where she taught her stuffed animals to read. Every now and then, new customers would point to a picture on the wall, a framed photo of the three of them smiling beneath a tree, Lily holding the wedding rings. Is that your family? They'd ask. James would smile, wrap an arm around Emily's waist and say, That's not just our family. That's our miracle. It had been 6 months since the wedding. Life had finally grown peaceful. Emily's bookstore cafe, the Little Lighthouse, had become a small-town favorite. James, having left one of his 2 exhausting jobs, spent more time with Lily, helping with school projects, dancing in the living room to old records, and walking her to the bookstore after school where she devoured adventure books while her parents exchanged lingering glances over coffee. They were happy. But peace, as Emily knew too well, was a delicate thing, easily shattered. It happened one rainy afternoon. Emily was alone in the bookstore, sorting through a new shipment of novels when the door chimed. She looked up, expecting a regular. Instead, a tall, sharp-faced man in a charcoal trench coat stood there, his presence immediately chilling. His eyes were cold, calculating. "Hello, Emily," he said, as if greeting an old friend. Her heart plummeted. James, arriving early to surprise her with lunch, froze just outside the glass window as he overheard the stranger's next words. "You thought you could just disappear? That our deal was forgotten?" James stepped inside instantly, his protective instincts flaring. "Who are you?" he asked, voice low. The man turned to him. "Ah, the husband. James, isn't it?" Emily looked stricken. "James, please. Go in the back with Lily." "No," James said firmly, stepping in front of her. "He says we had a deal." "What deal?" The stranger smirked. "Oh, she didn't tell you. Emily wasn't alone during her time away. She had protection. At a cost." James's fists clenched. "What kind of cost?" The man leaned forward. "A promise. That she wouldn't return to you. That she'd stay hidden, safe, as long as she kept her silence. But now she's broken that promise." Emily's eyes shimmered with panic. "He's dangerous, James. He's the reason I had to leave. My father tried to protect us, but this man, he found me first." The stranger stepped back, adjusting his collar. "I just came to deliver a warning. Keep pretending this fairy tale works, but don't forget. Debts always come due." And with that, he turned and vanished into the rain. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Emily sat on the couch, visibly shaken. James knelt before her, holding her trembling hands. "I didn't tell you," she said, voice breaking, "because I was ashamed. I was desperate. There were threats, people my father had crossed. They came for me. That man, he hid me, yes. But he owned me too." James looked into her eyes, his voice filled with resolve. "Whatever danger you were in, whatever happened, we face it together now. No more running. No more secrets." She nodded, tears slipping down her face. "I'm scared, James." He kissed her forehead. "Then we'll be scared together. But I won't let anything happen to you. Or to Lily." Outside, the storm raged on. But inside their little home, a new vow was forming, not just of love but of protection. And a quiet promise in James's heart. If the past wanted to haunt them, it would have to go through him first. The night after the stranger's visit, Emily couldn't sleep. Shadows danced on the walls, each one threatening to pull her back to a place she never wanted to return. James held her as she trembled, waiting until she finally whispered, "You need to know everything." He sat up slowly. "I'm listening." Emily took a deep breath. "When I left that morning a year ago, it wasn't by choice. I had just dropped Lily off at preschool. On my way back home, I was pulled into a black SUV. I thought I was being kidnapped." Her voice cracked. "But when the door opened, I saw him. Victor Moreau." James frowned. "The man from the bookstore." She nodded. "He was my father's business associate. Shadowy man. Ruthless. I'd heard whispers over the years, but my father always said Victor took care of problems." "Why did he come for you?" "My father made a deal behind closed doors, a merger with people you don't say no to. But he tried to back out. Victor warned him, 'If you break the deal, someone you love pays the price.' He didn't take it seriously. Until it was too late." James's jaw tightened. "Victor told me if I didn't disappear, if I didn't vanish completely, Lily would be the next warning. So I agreed. I was relocated to a private estate under constant watch. No phone. No contact with the outside world. Just silence, fear, and the ache of being away from you and Lily." James felt sick. "I tried to run once. They caught me. After that, Victor showed me pictures. Of Lily at school, you at work. He said next time I disobey, it won't just be pictures." James's hands clenched into fists. "Then one day it changed. Victor told me my father had handled things and that I was free to go. But my father was dying. He had paid the price to buy my freedom. He wired millions into Victor's accounts. That was the real cost." James looked stunned. "That's why you came back when you did." Emily nodded. "The moment I was free, I ran. I didn't know if you'd still be in town, or if you'd even want to see me. But I had to try." She looked up at James. "And now he's back. Victor doesn't like to let go. If he feels you're a threat to what he once controlled." "I am a threat," James said, standing. "Because I have something he doesn't. And I won't let him take you again." Victor sat in a high-rise penthouse overlooking the city. He sipped his scotch, a slight smirk tugging at his lips. "She told him," he muttered to no one. A man in a black coat stepped forward. "What do you want to do?" Victor narrowed his eyes. "We let them believe they're safe. Then we remind them, the past doesn't stay buried." He turned to the window, rain sliding down the glass like tears. "They think this is over. But it's only just begun." The morning after revealing the truth to James, Emily stood at the window watching Lily chase butterflies in the backyard. The sun was shining, but a storm raged inside her. Victor was back. And he didn't make idle threats. Emily turned to James, her voice firm. "I'm not going to let him haunt us, James. I'm going to end this." James's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I know Victor. I know how he thinks. If we go to the police, he'll vanish before they can even knock on his door. If we run, he'll follow. The only way to stop him is to outplay him." James shook his head. "Emily, no. This man kept you prisoner. He threatened our daughter." "I know. That's why I have to do this," she said quietly. "He won't stop until I make him stop." She pulled out an old flash drive. Dusty, taped with layers of caution. "What's that?" James asked. "It's everything. Names, offshore accounts, emails, encrypted files. I copied it when I was at the estate. I never dared use it before. But now," James stared at it. "That's dangerous." Emily gave a sad smile. "So is he." That evening, Emily walked into Victor's private club, Noir House, alone. Her heels clicked on the marble as she moved through the sea of wealth and whispered power. Men in suits turned their heads. But she didn't flinch. Victor sat in a velvet chair, sipping wine. He looked up slowly. Well, the phoenix rises. Emily dropped the flash drive on the table. Call off your dogs. Victor raised an eyebrow. You brought me a toy. That toy will end you if anything happens to me or my family. He chuckled. You think I'm afraid of exposure. I think you're afraid of prison. And more importantly, of losing everything. I've already made copies. Sent them to people who would love to see you fall. Victor's smile faded. His fingers tapped the table slowly. What do you want? Freedom, Emily said calmly. No more threats. No more shadows. You erase every trace of me from your files and forget we ever existed. Victor stood, circling her slowly like a predator sizing up his prey. You've changed. No, she said. I just remembered who I am. A tense silence stretched between them. Then Victor nodded once to a man near the bar. The man slipped away quietly. You get your freedom, Victor said. But just remember, peace always has a price. Emily turned and walked away, her heart pounding but her spine straight. Back home, James watched the clock. Had been hours. When Emily walked through the door, his relief was instant. She collapsed into his arms. It's done, she whispered. We're free. But as they held each other tight, neither of them noticed the black SUV parked 2 blocks away, engine idling. Inside, the man from Victor's club made a call. She gave him the drive. What do you want me to do? Then, watch her. And wait. Two days passed. James and Emily tried to settle back into a rhythm. Morning pancakes, late-night talks, bedtime stories with Lily curled between them. Felt like a dream. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every time she turned a corner, she half expected to see Victor. But it wasn't him. It was someone else. The man in the black SUV never made contact. He watched from afar, always in the distance, like a silent ghost. But that changed one foggy evening. James was closing up the auto shop when he heard the footsteps. Slow, deliberate. He turned. A man in a charcoal suit stood just outside the garage door. Mid-40s, salt and pepper beard. Sharp eyes that had seen too much. James Parker? The man asked calmly. James stepped forward cautiously. Who's asking? The man handed over a card. Dorian Wells, private intelligence consultant. No phone number. No address. What do you want? James asked. I want to help you, Dorian said. And destroy Victor Moreau. James froze. You know him. I've been hunting him for 10 years, Dorian replied. I worked inside his world once, until I realized the man I was protecting had more blood on his hands than the people he claimed to fight. Why now? Because your wife finally gave me the crack I needed. That flash drive. It's more than evidence. It's a blueprint to Victor's empire. James narrowed his eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because I need your help now. Meanwhile, home. Emily was reading to Lily when she heard the soft thud outside, like something falling onto the porch. She opened the front door and found a small envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Her and Lily at the park, from that afternoon. Written on the back. We're always watching. Her hands trembled. Back at the garage, James listened as Dorian laid out the plan. I need access to Victor's properties. His bank, his safe houses. He's moving something. Or someone. I think he's preparing to disappear. And you want me to help. I want you to distract him. Make him believe you're fighting for your family. While I dismantle his empire from the inside. James thought of Emily. Of Lily. Of the photo that had nearly broken him when she left. And the one Emily had just found. I'll do it, James said. But if this goes sideways. It won't, Dorian said. Because for once, Victor doesn't see us coming. But Victor always sees everything. Inside his penthouse, he stared at a live feed from a surveillance drone, watching James and Dorian shake hands. He smiled coldly. So the game begins. By the time James returned home that night, Emily had already tucked Lily into bed. She was standing in the kitchen, her back to the door, clutching the photo she'd found. James stepped in quietly. "You saw it." She turned, eyes wide. "They were watching us, James. Today. The park. They took this." James's jaw tightened. "We're not alone in this anymore. Someone came to me at the garage." Emily's brows shot up. "Who?" "He says his name is Dorian Wells. Claims he used to work for Victor. Says he wants to bring him down." Emily's eyes narrowed. "And you believe him?" "I don't know," James admitted. "But he has information, real dangerous stuff. Things only someone close to Victor would know." Emily crossed her arms. "People like that don't just change, James. If he was part of Victor's world, how can we trust he's not still playing his game?" James sighed. "He knew about the flash drive. He says we're the leverage he's been waiting for. He needs us to draw Victor's attention while he dismantles things from the inside." Emily shook her head slowly. "It sounds like we're pawns, not partners." Elsewhere that night, Dorian sat in a dark apartment surrounded by monitors and files. The walls were plastered with images, maps, encrypted documents, surveillance photos, some of James, some of Emily. He zoomed in on one image, a young woman with a soft smile and haunted eyes. "Emily, 15 years ago." He stared at the screen. A voice behind him spoke. "You're getting too close." Dorian didn't flinch. She was never supposed to be part of this. Victor promised she'd be safe. "And yet here we are," the voice replied. Dorian rubbed his temples. "They deserve a life. Real one. If I can take Victor down, maybe it makes up for." "You really think redemption is that simple?" Dorian said nothing. The next morning, Emily couldn't sleep. Something about Dorian felt off. She opened her laptop, typing his name into the search bar. But nothing came up. No records. No military history. No business profile. It was like he didn't exist. She frowned and dug deeper, using an old contact from her father's inner circle. She waited for hours. Then finally, a message pinged her inbox. "Dorian Wells is an alias. Real name: Aiden Cross. Former operative. Once tied to Victor's private security force. Directly responsible for multiple quiet removals during the Moreau expansion years. Disappeared 7 years ago. Presumed dead." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She stood up, knocking her chair over. James walked in just as she grabbed her coat. "Where are you going?" he asked. "To find out what Aiden Cross really wants," she snapped. James blinked. "Who?" "Dorian isn't who he says he is. And if he's working both sides, we're all in danger." Meanwhile, in Victor's world, Victor stared at the new intel on his screen, a blurry surveillance image of Dorian. No Aiden, meeting with a third man in a parking garage. Victor narrowed his eyes. "So the ghost returns," he murmured. "How poetic." He lit a cigar and leaned back. "It's time I pay my daughter a proper visit." By the time James returned home that night, Emily had already tucked Lily into bed. She was standing in the kitchen, her back to the door, clutching the photo she'd found. James stepped in quietly. "You saw it." She turned, eyes wide. "They were watching us, James. Today. The park. They took this." James's jaw tightened. "We're not alone in this anymore. Someone came to me at the garage." Emily's brows shot up. "Who?" "He says his name is Dorian Wells. Claims he used to work for Victor. Says he wants to bring him down." Emily's eyes narrowed. "And you believe him?" "I don't know," James admitted. "But he has information, real dangerous stuff. Things only someone close to Victor would know." Emily crossed her arms. "People like that don't just change, James. If he was part of Victor's world, how can we trust he's not still playing his game?" James sighed. "He knew about the flash drive. He says we're the leverage he's been waiting for. He needs us to draw Victor's attention while he dismantles things from the inside. Emily shook her head slowly. It sounds like we're pawns, not partners. The warehouse was cold, silent, and drenched in shadow. Emily stood in the center, heart racing, palms sweating. Beside her, Aiden adjusted the hidden camera sewn into the lining of her coat. Across the city, James sat in a van with law enforcement, listening through a receiver. They had one shot, one chance to end Victor Moreau's reign. Tonight she would face her father and finish what began years ago. Black car pulled up. Victor stepped out, flanked by 2 bodyguards. "You came alone," he said, stepping into the circle of light. "I came for the truth," Emily said. "You said you wanted clarity. I'm here." Victor smirked. "And your shadows? Where are they hiding?" "Gone," she lied. "Just us now." He stepped closer. "Good. Then let's talk." She drew in a shaky breath. "Why me, father? Why did you make me choose between love and blood?" Victor didn't answer right away. He walked a slow circle around her. "Because I saw your future, and it terrified me. Weak, domestic, loving a mechanic, raising a child with dreams instead of power. I had to break you before the world did." Emily's voice trembled, but she stood her ground. "But I survived. And I came back stronger." Victor leaned in. "You came back because you're mine. Because you're still afraid." "No," she whispered. "I came back to finish this." With one swift motion, she pulled the chain from around her neck, a silver flash drive, and threw it toward the shadows. A spotlight burst on. Aiden caught it mid-air and stepped into view, flanked by FBI agents. "You're done, Victor," Aiden said. "The recordings, the threats, the extortion, it's all here. And it's already been sent." Victor froze. For the first time, he looked old. "Emily," he growled. "You don't know what you've done." She stepped back. "I do. I chose my family over your empire." Victor turned, but the agents moved in. "You'll pay for this," he screamed as they cuffed him. "I already did," Emily whispered. "For years." Hours later, the sky turned soft with morning. James stood outside the diner where it all began, Lily clinging to his side. Emily walked up to them, eyes swollen but peaceful. She dropped to her knees and opened her arms. Lily ran into her. James wrapped them both up in his arms. "It's over," Emily whispered. "It's really over." "No," James said gently. "It's just beginning." 1 year later, the diner was brighter now. Renovated. Busy. A newspaper sat on the counter. Victor Moreau sentenced to 25 years. Lily laughed as she helped Emily frost cupcakes in the back. James flipped pancakes with a smile on his face. And Aiden. He disappeared shortly after the trial. No one ever saw him again. But sometimes on quiet nights, a letter would arrive for Lily. No return address. Just a simple note. "The world's a better place because your mom chose love. Always choose love."